Get in, nerds. We are explaining Hearts of Iron 4, and I'm over at Great Britain because we were explaining as Great Britain before, but psych, we're actually playing as Mexico now. So this is going to get you a little bit of an early preview of what's going on in our Mexico run, but don't worry too much about that. So, I want to get into today's video with talking about units, because I've taught you how to build buildings, particularly factories, which you're going to use to produce goods, to produce equipment. I've taught you how to produce equipment using those factories, but how do we turn that equipment and manpower into units? And that is what the recruit and deploy interface is all about. So, here's how this works. At the top here, we've got our mandatories. These are places that equipment goes that we don't have that much control over. We can control the prioritization over here, but not what actually goes to what. So, reinforcements are equipment that needs to be allocated to units that are in the field that are under strength. Upgrades means flowing newly produced equipment into units that are currently using older equipment. Supply trucks is our supply hubs that have been assigned motorization but haven't been fully motorized yet. Operations is intelligence operations, which we're going to cover in a future video. And then garrisons is all of the units that we're using to occupy territory, which in this case is Mexico, is none, because both of the places we've got occupied that could be released as other countries, we own as cores. So we don't need to occupy them. So, below that is our currently training lines of units. So, just as an example here, I'm currently training 2 elite mechanized divisions. And this is the training bar for that. I can increase the total number that will be produced serially over here, and that will create in 1 out of whatever over here. Or I can increase the number that will be trained in parallel over here, and this will create new entries. And basically each of these is a division that will be allocated. And if I increase this by 5 again, so this will produce 25 divisions once they've been fully trained, but I'm not going to do that. I tend to do all of my division training serially, as you may have seen from my videos. I just prefer to have direct fine control over it. I don't like to set divisions just kind of training and getting ready to be deployed without sort of knowing where I'm going to put them and what I'm doing with them. Prioritization is these 3 buttons here, and you're going to be able to see all of these for all of your lines. Low priority means it'll go in last. High priority means it'll go in first. So that's I've got everything set to medium priority. I think the AI for that basically works fine. So this is the name of the division that's being produced. This is the logo. These 3 chevrons mean it's an elite division, which means that the best equipment I produce is going to go to that division. You can also have units without any chevrons, which means they'll get whatever equipment is available. And you can see divisions that are low priority reserve divisions, which means worse equipment will go into those divisions even when better equipment is available. My Brigadas Aguerristas are defensive divisions. I'm just basically manning the frontier with the United States with them so that USA doesn't get any ideas. I don't think USA is going to get any ideas, but if they did, I would want to have some troops there. But I don't necessarily need to have really good troops there. So, this shows where the units are going to be deployed once they are finished training. You notice I move my mouse here and that highlight appears on the map over Mexico City. I tend to deploy units to my capital by default. This lets you add units to be produced in parallel. This obviously lets you change the number of total units being produced. This line deploys the unit automatically. Sorry, not automatically, instantly. And this button cancels the units that are currently being trained. So, then we've got 2 bars here. This bar is the amount of equipment available, and if you mouse over this, you can see what percentage of equipment is available and what what's lacking. Anything that's fully supplied is going to appear in green. Anything that is not fully supplied is going to appear in gold here. And the same is true of this other line. And then over here, you can see what level of training the unit is at. And in order to fully train, the unit needs to be fully equipped. So as you can see here, our equipment is at 96%. So this unit's only able to train up to 96% with the current equipment. Now, more equipment's going to flow into these. We're just short on some infantry equipment and support equipment. And once that's done, these will be able to fully train up. And then, as you can see, it says at the bottom, if this unit is fully equipped, training will be finished on 8 October 1941, so about 2.5 months, 3.5 months from now. 2.5, 3.5, something like that. It's going to be a bit, is where we're going with this. So, this is a training line, and these are the types of units we can currently train. What's a unit, you might be asking? And that's a great question. In most games, units have set values, hit points, damage, armor, that kind of thing. In Hearts of Iron 4, units are modular, and we can alter them using our division designer. So just to put an example up here, I can't show both at once, but my Brigada Agarista, you can see, is divided into, we've got main line battle battalions and support companies. The Brigada Agarista has one column. This is technically a regiment. It's not... Regiments don't have any mechanics, but you can still think of it as a regiment. And each of these... this regiment has 3 battalions of infantry. So this is a very small, weak unit. In comparison, my División de Infantería has a much more substantive presence. We've got 3 regiments of 3 battalions of infantry each, 1 regiment of 2 battalions of artillery, and then we've got support artillery, cavalry reconnaissance, logistics, and engineering companies. So this is a new interface element. When I pop this, you can see these infantry battalions line up, and that's because the engineering company increases the base entrenchment of those companies. Similarly, I hit the recon button, and that's because... And the artillery battalions line up because my recon increases the soft attack of my artillery, which is pretty cool. In any case, where we're going with all this is these battalions create all of our statistics over here. Line battalions are just basically added up, and then support battalions have some effects on the whole. So, I'm going to walk you through each of these and talk to you about how they apply. So first we got our base stats, over here we've got our combat stats, and over here we've got equipment cost. So base stats is going to track a lot of things that don't necessarily touch the combat interface all that much, except for HP and organization. And then combat stats are going to be how it behaves in combat. And then equipment cost is what you need to produce one of these. So just as one example here, for equipment cost, you'll notice that, and this is dependent completely on what I've got in here. So if we mouse over this infantry thing, you'll see right in the middle there, above the terrain, movement, and attack modifiers, you see manpower plus 100, infantry equipment, manpower plus 1,000, infantry equipment plus 100. That's the cost of deploying one infantry battalion. If we go over to this artillery battalion and look in the same place, it only costs 500 manpower instead of 1,000, and it doesn't cost any infantry equipment, but it costs 36 artillery. Over here, we have one of these support companies costs, this is a recon one, it costs 500 manpower and 40 infantry equipment, and 10 support equipment. The logistics one, on the other hand, is going to cost no infantry equipment, same 500 manpower, but it's going to cost 20 support equipment and 10 trucks. So, you can see we've got a wide variety of costs, and all those are added up to determine what's needed in the equipment cost. So this fully developed infantry division is going to cost 11,600 manpower. It's going to take 120 days to train. Fuel capacity and usage are 0. It's not at all mechanized or motorized, so it doesn't use any fuel or have any fuel capacity. And it's going to cost 84 artillery. That's 36 for each of the line battalions, and then 12 for the support battalion. 950 infantry equipment for 9 infantry battalions, and then a bunch of support companies. 10 trucks for the logistics, and 60 support equipment for these various support companies. So, now let's get into the combat stats, and we're going to be doing a lot of explaining here because this stuff is complicated. We're going to do the base stats, then we're going to do the combat stats. I'm just going to run through the base stats briefly. Max speed, that's how fast the division goes. Hit points, this is how much damage it can take before being destroyed. This doesn't affect a whole lot of things. Well, I shouldn't say that. It affects a lot of things, but divisions being destroyed rarely happens through hit point loss. It can happen through being surrounded and captured. But if it's surrounded and runs out of, and surrenders, then it will be destroyed. That's the much more likely case for divisions being destroyed. Below here is organization, and these are the hit points that are going to kind of matter. Organization comes back over time naturally, but it is the first place damage goes when damage comes into the division. When a division that's defending runs out of organization, it's forced to retreat. When a division that's attacking runs out of organization, it's forced to call off the attack. This means that a unit with no organization can't fight, and organization comes back over time. HP, on the other hand, damage will also go to, but much less than organization, and HP can only be restored by providing the equipment with the division with what's been lost, wherever equipment or manpower has been lost. So HP doesn't naturally go back up by itself, but it goes up. Sorry, I shouldn't say naturally. It automatically goes back up as long as you have the necessary manpower and equipment to reinforce the division, but it's slower, and it happens over time through the supply, through the automated supply system. Recovery rate, this is the amount of organization that the division recovers every, I want to say, hour. Yeah, I think that looks right, because that means this division is going to recover about 3 organization per day. Well, no, that doesn't seem right. That seems slow. I'm not sure. Recon's a fun little value. I forget what it affects. I think it has to do with tactic selection. Suppression, this is the amount that the division mitigates resistance when you use it as a garrison. Weight, this is how many convoys the division takes to transport. Supply use, this is how much supply you need to feed through the supply network in order to supply the division. Average reliability, this is the reliability of the equipment that the division is using. This is going to affect things like attrition. Reliability bonus, trickle back, and war support protection, experience loss. These are things that are only available through the hospital support battalion. This division doesn't have any. Very briefly, the hospital battalion provides a trickle back and war support protection, which means losses in combat get returned to the manpower pool, and you don't lose as much war support because the individual soldiers recover. And then XP loss is how much experience the division loses when it takes damage as a proportion of its damage. And again, field hospital is going to mitigate that as well. So next, let's talk about combat. And for combat, our stats here are soft attack, hard attack, air attack, defense breakthrough, armor and piercing, initiative, entrenchment, equipment capture ratio, and combat width. First thing I'm going to talk about is combat width. All terrain has a base combat width. So if you're attacking from one plane's hex into another plane's hex, that's going to have a base combat width of 90, which means I could have 4 of these big infantry divisions in there without having a problem, because these are combat width 24. Sorry, that would create a problem. I could have 3 without a problem. Because these are combat width 24, that'd be 72. If I put 4 in there, that'd be 98. And that would give all of the divisions in the combat that I'm using on my side a small penalty. So 24 is not ideal for fighting a lot of fights on plains, but there's not a lot of plains outside of Western Europe. But terrain type matters a lot. Like if I'm attacking in the mountains, I think that's a base combat width of like 72 or something. It's really, really tight for mountains. So the more wide open the terrain is, the more combat width you have. So just and every additional hex you're attacking from, just as an example, is going to increase the combat width by 50%. So for example, this is a forest hex with a base combat width of 60, but if I were attacking this hex from this plane's hex and these 2 hexes as well, it would have a combat width of 150. Of 120. 1 for the base attack, then 50% for each additional hex I'm attacking through. So, let's take a look at a combat, and that'll help you understand kind of how combats work. I'm going to go over to Europe where our allies are fighting, And we'll just take a look at Spain here. We've got a Democratic German Armored Division attacking a Spanish Iberian Socialist Union Infantry Division here. So, this is your breakdown of how these two divisions are interacting. This is the defense, the armor of the unit. Because our Panzer Division is attacking, that is going to be using the unit's breakthrough. And over here we've got the defending unit's defense. Breakthrough and defense are offensive armor and defensive, or are offensive defense and defensive defense, and that's very important. Infantry is going to have excellent defense, but it's only going to have moderate breakthrough. Over here, you got your soft attack and your hard attack. Soft attack is 51.2 in this case, whereas hard attack is 19.8. Then over here we've got the Spanish division's numbers for the same. It doesn't show what percentage is being allocated, but that'll be something that will matter in a second when we go back to our infantry division template. But basically, actually, let me bring that up now just so that you can have a visual to what that means. I'm going to take a look at our mechanized template and so that you can kind of see it. So a mechanized, the hardness of a division is equal to the proportional hardness of all the units in it. So mechanized has a hardness, it's not actually listed here when we mouse over, but it's pretty high. It's like 75 or 80%. This unit has a 63% hardness. Compare this with our infantry division, which has a 0% hardness. So an infantry division, when it's fighting, will take the entire, in terms of damage, will take 100% of the soft attack of the division that it's fighting, and 0% of the hard attack. So in this case, if my division were fighting this Spanish division, it would take 28 attacks. On the other hand, you contrast this with my mechanized division, which is 63% hard, so it would take 63% of the hard attacks from this division, which is like 3. It's more like 2 1/3, but you know, we're fine. It's fine. We can round. And then 37% of the soft attacks, which is like 8, because this one's got a soft attack of 28 and a hard attack of 4. So that adds up to much less. So 3 plus 8 is 11, and that's much less than the number of attacks that my infantry division would take. And basically, hard attack is almost always going to be equal to or less than soft attack. So hardness is virtually always an advantage. So that's the base number of attacks, but when you're fighting another division, you can use your defense and breakthrough to mitigate those attacks. So, as an example, if I were defending against this infantry division, I would have a defense with this division of 754, modified by whatever the terrain difference is, which is quite high. In contrast, if I were attacking that division, I would have a defense of 139.1, because my breakthrough is only alright. Mechanized divisions are pretty good at attacking, but they're basically the last word on defense. So, one of the things about armored battalions is their defense is only moderate, but they have extremely high breakthrough, which means when they're attacking, they've got actually really excellent defense. Now, when you create an armored division, you're going to make it a split between, typically, you're going to do this this is the right decision. I know this is not a strategy series, this is a what is, not a how to, but very broadly speaking, when you're designing armored divisions, you have to have at least a little bit of motorized or mechanized infantry in them, or regular infantry if they're really heavy tanks and really slow, but I wouldn't do that. You're going to want to have at least a little bit of motorized and mechanized infantry in those divisions, because those are going to provide you with your defense, and they're going to provide you with your organization. Armor has very low organization, so you're going to need infantry in there to increase the organization of the division as a whole. Next thing, so that's the way soft and hard attack works, and those are just these values here. Air attack, this is just the amount of damage you do to any close air support or tactical bombers that are attacking you personally. Most divisions don't have that much. You can throw foot AA or support AA into a division if you want to have that, but basically a lot of divisions are not going to have that. Defense and breakthrough, like I said, are defense is ability to mitigate enemy attacks when attacking or when defending. Breakthrough is ability to mitigate enemy attacks when attacking. Armor and piercing are a funny animal. Armor basically means every time units are fighting each other and some units have armor, there's a calculation between the enemy's piercing and your armor. So, for example, this Panzer division here has a note here that says one enemy divisions cannot pierce this division's armor and deal 50% of damage. If an enemy division attacking us is unable to penetrate our armor, we'll take up to 50% less damage and organization strength damage. If attacking an enemy division that can penetrate less than 50% of our armor, we'll do additional damage. So that's the other way that armored divisions become very effective at overcoming basic infantry divisions and other sort of low-tech divisions. If you throw anti-tank into your division designs, you can generally mitigate light armor, and if you're very good at keeping your anti-tank up to date, you can mitigate medium armor with that. But that's the way armor and piercing work. And again, these are pulled off of these unit values here. So you can see each of these battalions is providing 0.1 armor and 0.1 piercing, and then we're getting more, I think, from this boy is reducing our. Where are we getting our armor and piercing from? I'm not sure. Oh, you know what? This is from our equipment upgrades. These stats are not exactly aligned because of our level of equipment we're using. Finally, there's initiative. That's another thing that I think affects tactics. That's what these are. That's an automated system. I don't know much about it. Entrenchment is how fast the unit entrenches itself. Equipment capture ratio is when it deals damage to the enemy, how many, what equipment it can grab itself, what percentage of the equipment that it deals in damage dealt it adds to its own stockpile, and then combat with, like I said, affects that whole system about who can attack from where. So yeah, that's the very brief on combat and unit design. How much more time have we got? We got a little bit more time here. So I'm just going to see if I can find a slightly more involved combat for us to take a look at. I'm at a 1-to-1 combat, 2-to-1 combat over here. Yeah, I don't see any others. We'll just quickly look at this one because we got a 2-to-1 combat over here. I just want to show you the way our allies have a unit that's still waiting to reinforce here. Having radio and certain technologies and stuff unlocked is going to increase your reinforcement rate, but the base reinforcement rate is 2% per hour, and that just means this division is going to join this combat with its reinforcement rate of 11%. This division on average is going to join this combat in 10 hours. And once that happens, its information will be present in the active divisions here, and the combat width for this side will go up. And again, this is the cap of combat width for all participants in the combat. Alright, so that's the very short version. Oh, by the way, I completely forgot. The thing about the division designer is you can use it to modify divisions. So, for example, if I wanted to double the width of my Brigada Zagoristas, I can click Add here. I got to pick between combat support, mobile, armor, and infantry. And I can just add 3 infantry battalions in here. And this is going to update all of these divisions. And if I've got the necessary equipment in my equipment stockpile, that'll flow out to those divisions normally. The manpower will flow out there normally. And the experience level of these divisions will go down because I'm feeding them fresh manpower. This is going to cost 15 experience points, 15 army experience to save, because I'm adding 3 divisions. Now, if I want to add something that's in a different group, like, say, a light tank battalion, that's going to cost a kicker of 20 experience. But if I want to add additional tanks, it's still going to be 5 for each of these. And then for support companies, it's 10 each for making any changes. So, yeah. And this is going to cost me 70 if I change it, because I'm making a very small infantry division into a mixed infantry and armor division. Do I recommend mixed infantry and armor divisions? No. Another thing I want to draw your attention to over here is this infantry division has 2.1 organization and 25 HP. You can see that kind of right in the middle of the stats block there. Right kind of situated in the middle there. Whereas this light tank has minus 3.8 organization and 2 hit points. So tanks have very, or sorry, no, this isn't. This is affecting the division template as a whole. That's not. Those aren't the raw stats. That's what's going on here. That's why I'm getting these numbers confused. Because this is compared to the average. So if I remove these, you can see the organization here is 52. That organization is gonna go up to 62.5. We remove these ones, it's gonna be going back down towards 58. Okay, so that settles why those values are not doing that. That's something that I didn't understand about the overall division design. And then we remove these support units, and we get back to having organization 70. Yeah. So, that's just about everything involving regular units and unit design. Again, I haven't told you what good units look like necessarily, although I like to think I've got some good examples here. But that's the basics of the mechanic and how it affects the game. So, yeah, I've had fun with this. I hope you've had fun and gotten some good information out of it, and I'll see you all on the other side.